Hey everybody, it's Justin once again. Glad to see you guys. I've been spending the summer working and whatnot, and not really having anything to update on. Uh, but fortunately for my friend Randy, I was able to get a few things and bring them to show you today. Mostly concerning the new Wild Honey Smiley Smile release, which, uh, as most of you know, the Sunshine Tomorrow compilation has came out. It's great. Um, I knew it was going to have a lot of great stuff on it. I do remember talking to Alan Boyd a year ago, a little over a year ago, about releasing the copyright stuff for 1967 for the 50 years as they've been doing with Beach Boys things. And he said, Mark Lynette and myself really want to get the uh, Lei'd in Hawaii stuff out. It's going to be tough to do a stereo mix of Wild Honey, but they did it. And we have a great 2-disc compilation, as I said. And if you haven't got your hands on this yet, please do so. You won't be sorry. The packaging is just beautiful. I love what the font with the 1967. And they've got the Wild Honey window. My question, I've never noticed this. Is that a butterfly there? I just noticed this when I opened that up the first time. I've never noticed that on the regular cover. Does anybody know? I have no idea. But anyway, moving forward, the stereo of the album, it just sounds fantastic. Mama Says, of course, is not in stereo. They couldn't find the tapes for it, so it's in mono. But the sessions and their unreleased songs for it are just kind of mind blowing and just unheard of. Stuff I never thought we'd ever hear, like "Honey Get Home," which is a great track. I never knew that there was a alternative version of "I Love Just Wants to See You," and it's a really just kind of quirky. It's already a quirky track, but the way they recorded it, it's just, I don't know. It sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm really glad they included it. Like I said, I had no idea there was an alternative version to it. I knew that there was the longer version of "I Was Made to Love Her," which was on the Rarities compilation with the added ending to it. It's great to get the session, the vocal insert for that. I had no idea that Hide Go Seek was going to be worked on for this, which brings to mind the most recent copy of Endless Summer Quarterly. Again, my friend Randy came to the rescue, and I'm able to have this stuff. Thank you very much for this. I read this issue so fast, like within 2 days. I had a long car ride, 4 or 5 hour car ride. I got it done reading in that whole trip. And what happens with this kind of issue is I'm interested in the whole shebang of it. And this is all about Smiley Smile and Wild Honey. And it's a fantastic read, and I couldn't get enough of it. It was hard for me to put it down. The interviews that they did for it, David Beard should be very proud of everything with Lee Dempsey. And nice ad back there for Sunshine Tomorrow. If you haven't already, get a subscription to Endless Summer Quarterly, ESQ. It's a great magazine. I've got the previous, not month, but previous season's copy of it with Mike for Summer in Paradise. And it's just a fantastic read. It keeps you up to date on, the touring, let alone stuff that's being recorded as far as people who are in that Beach Boy realm, like Adam Marsland here. Nice review. And also keeps you up to date on, what's going on as far as people recording, playing live. Unfortunately, those who've passed away in the Beach Boy world universe. This particular issue, though, the Smiley Smile one, if you haven't got this particular issue, if you're really into this, which I'm sure you are, it's hard not to be. You really should get it. It's got the great interviews, Steve Desper, Al, and they have some quotes from Mike and Brian. Towards the end, David Beard, Howie Adelson. Am I saying that right? I hope so. Sorry if I botched your name. I think Mark Lynette and Alan Boyd have a kind of a roundtable discussion, and they just bring up a lot of stuff. I don't want to tell you because I really want you to get out there and subscribe to, or at least buy this issue to Endless Summer Quarterly. Get on their website. I'll try to put their web address on the info for this. I just love this cover. That's so awesome. Breaking free of Smile. It's just great. But one of the things I think Alan Boyd brought up was that Brian was trying to get back to the things he knew, make things uncomplicated. The fact that it was called Wild Honey, his wife was the Honeys, Honey Get Home, using Darlin as the from the tune Think About My Baby, using that. And Hide Go Seek. It's the stuff that he was familiar with and going back to that. It's very interesting. That's all about our reveal for that. Otherwise, you should really get into it. And side note, this issue of ESQ is really interesting. This is more of the typical of issues where they kind of update on those who've received the prize packages recently, newer books that are out, fan letters. We have, the news, the pipeline as they call it, which is some stuff that I never hear about on the internet, and you should definitely get into that because of that, because there's not a lot out there that spills the news all the time. Sometimes you get to hear about it, but not all the time. But anyway, this deals a lot with Summer in Paradise, and it's great to hear Mike talk about this because this is something you don't hear about as much. Summer in Paradise was just coming out when the Good Vibrations box set came out, so it's not really covered on there. I believe on the touring program for the 2012 reunion, Summer in Paradise isn't even on the frame of the albums. Of all the Beach Boy albums, I'm pretty sure Summer in Paradise was left out. Very interesting. Kind of same with Summer Made in California. The only thing that they put on there was the live version of Summer in Paradise. So it's very interesting to hear them talk about, what went on during that time. They also interviewed the painter who did the cover of the album. So it goes really in depth, and if you're a hardcore fan like myself, then I know you'd appreciate it. So moving back to the Sunshine Tomorrow, I know there was different on the SOT bootlegs. There was definitely some of these sessions on there, the Wild Honey sessions. It's great to hear them remixed. I feel like Aren't You Glad and Let the Wind Blow sessions were not on the SOT session bootleg. Aren't You Glad is... I've always been a huge fan of the song, and I'm not tooting my own horn to say I was right all along. Like, hey, this is a great song. I always thought it was. I love the horn part. I love the live version on Live in London. There's that version. I think it's actually on here as well. I'm thinking it's from the early 70s. They performed it at Big Sur, I believe, in the early 70s. I love the organ part, and it's just a great album, a great song. And so since this released, people have been like, track 22 is amazing. It's just so, I don't know, it's just so good. And hearing the piano part, the do 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 do, the bouncing, it's just, I can't get enough of it. It's definitely one of the first things I turn on when I get into my car. It's just ear candy, you know. Um, and it shows that kind of copy and pasting that Brian did for the recording, where they would record the verse and kind of use the same track for the verse. They go into that in detail in ESQ, I believe, and it's just really interesting. Great to hear "Let the Wind Blow," that detuned piano, and that's another thing they go into in some of those interviews uh, in the booklet and on the ESQ issue, is that detuned piano that Brian wanted detuned is just, I love it. You hear it on the Surf's Up from 1967, and the version on here, it has him do a couple of the lines from the verse, and it's just phenomenal. I'm so glad that they put that on there. When I first saw it on there, I was like, well, we've already got that from the Smile set, but they included even more. Um, it's Can't Wait Too Long, another version, has some of the piano parts that are working out. I believe on the Smiley Smile board, they were talking about Brian saying, this piano, I can't stand it. I feel like that's Dennis saying that in the session. I could be totally wrong. I wasn't there. To me, I hear Dennis's voice saying, God, this piano is so terrible. It sounds a lot like Dennis, which would kind of just, when everybody was thinking it was Brian saying that, and it's kind of like, well, that's a mystery because he wanted it tuned that way. But anyway, it's interesting to hear that. Lonely Days gets an extended version of it, and it's just the part we have from Hawthorne, California set, and then they attach the track to it, so it makes it a little longer. It sounds awesome, though. I love the organ part. That's a highlight of most of this is the organs. Mama Says session. It's kind of funny to hear. It's pretty cool that they included that. Moving on to disc 2. Before I move into that, I'll just show you the booklet real quick. If you've already got this isn't anything new. Great to see all these pictures from the Lei'd in Hawaii sessions and concert. It's pretty cool. And this reminds me that there's the Darlin video that includes a lot of this that I think the Beach Boys Vevo, VEVO, put out. And Howie Edelson, sorry if I botched your name again, does the liner notes here. And then we have a note from the producers. And I just love seeing this kind of stuff. The session tapes and whatnot and the dates. It's just great to see that kind of stuff. So, good booklet. Smiley Smile stuff. It's great to hear this as well. We have the backing track. The backing track was on the Good Vibrations box set from the 90s, but it was just like 45 seconds, and then it just faded out, and it was like, oh, man. So this is really good. It does the whole thing, and even has some of the vocals at the end. It's really good. Long version of Vegetables. I'm pretty sure this is the same version from Hawthorne, CA. It's got the whistling on it. It's all right. I've never been a huge fan of the version of Vegetables on Smiley Smile. I don't know. I like the Smile version, and I don't know. There's just something about it I just never loved. I enjoyed other stuff more on Smiley Smile than Vegetables. It's not terrible. It's just not my favorite. The alternative mix of Fall Breaks, is so good. It just shows you kind of what the track is without the vocals. then adding in bit by bit, each time, and it sounds so good. Uh, I know some people. Well, one person in particular on Facebook said that Fall Breaks is just they don't enjoy it and it's just noise. And it's like, no, I can't believe that is not noise. If you think that's noise, what do you think of Mrs. O'Leary's cow? Because that's got to be like loud noise to you. Like, I don't know. There's an obvious musical context to it that it's pure genius. It's not just like hitting a button on a keyboard and just like bah. It's not. It's more than that. Moving on, the wind chimes tag. Cool to get that little keyboard organ part. Backing track to Wonderful is so interesting compared to the Wonderful we get on Smile Sessions. With Me Tonight, the alternative version, very certain this is the version that's on Hawthorne CA, except I noticed I think it misses the intro, that Hawthorne has the intro of On and On She Goes, and it's not on here, and I feel like Brian on Hawthorne says, sing it with a smile, and then they go into it. So maybe this is the actual part that happens. I don't know if they skipped that or what. We had the backing track, the little pad. Oh my gosh. So good, so peaceful. It's unbelievable. The only thing missing here is She's Going Bald. I wish there was something to do with that, but that's all right. Very much the highlight of this disc. All day, all night, the alternative versions, them working on Whistle In, is unbelievable. It's fantastic. Like, I feel like I heard part of that before when I hung out with Alan Boyd, and it was just like, wow, the version that's on Smiley Smile is like kind of missing thing. Not missing, it just doesn't sound as good. And the vocals on this are just like, whoa. We have the untitled Redwood track, and that's been on, I think, the 2020 Friends SOT Sea of Tunes bootleg had that track, and it was labeled as the Pickle Brothers, maybe. I think that's somebody who toured with them at one point during that time. Somebody has made a YouTube video using that untitled Redwood Through Dog Night track and put Time to Get Alone with it. Put it together. It sounds awesome. Like, it's hard. It's hard for me to, when I'm listening in the car just to that little 35-second track, it's hard for me to sing Time to Get Alone with it, but it works in the context of putting it on top of the Time to Get Alone track. That's really interesting and cool. Moving on to the Lei'd in Hawaii stuff, I didn't realize Fred Vale was doing an intro to it, which that's really interesting. You know, it kind of segues from the 1964 live concert album, and so it's interesting that they would have him do that again. So then we get some of this stuff that we've had for a while on bootlegs. On the Rarities album, there was The Letter. I love the big organ part of You're So Good to Me. It's so Brian. I was thinking about Help Me Rhonda, how different it is from the version we have on Summer Days. I mean, all these are very Smiley Smile, and I didn't come up with that, but other people have said, this is like the Smiley Smile versions of California Girls and Sloop John B and stuff like that. And it's like, that's kind of brilliant. Like, this version of Help Me Rhonda is just like so not the same versions that were on Today and Summer Days. It's just so laid back, but I love it. Version of Surfer Girl, that was originally on the bonus disc, the last track on the Good Vibrations box set. It's my absolute favorite version of Surfer Girl. You got the organ, as they said in the liner notes on that box set, you've got the 5 original Beach Boys singing this. It's unbelievable. And it really is. And they got the outro to it, that the it's all a cappella, and it's just like, whoa. And they never did that until Brian did it at Live at the Roxy. And I'm always wanting, whenever I hear Surfer Girl performed live by Brian's band, I always want that, that part, but they never really do it. Usually they just do the dun, dun, dun with the guitar, which is usually how they end Surfer Girl. But that vocal on Live at the Roxy and at Lei'd in Hawaii for Surfer Girl is so good. I'm glad they reused it for that for the Roxy. Great that we have with a little help from my friends. I absolutely enjoy that version. I love Carl's vocals. The "What do you see when you turn out the light?" It's just so good. That's the best part of that is the backing vocals, and totally enjoy it. The version of Good Vibrations, the rehearsal is different from the one from Lei'd in Hawaii or from Hawthorne CD set. I thought it would be the same one, but it sounds different. But I really enjoy it. Finally, we get Game of Love, which I always attributed to being Wild Honey era, but and I haven't even looked at the dates for it. I guess I could look at it. But while I'm looking for that, it's interesting. They did that cover, and it sounds very much like. Let's see. The song was recorded during the live Hyder sessions in September 1967, but was left off the assembled master reel. So I guess it was recorded at Wally Hyder's place, and but it sounds very Wild Honey-esque. It's enjoyable as well. And then we have the release of Hawthorne Boulevard. It's pretty interesting that they did a guitar instrumental there. It was just a minute, nothing real long. The version of Surfin', of course, has the part of Do It Again that they borrowed from the da-na-da-da-na-na, which is interesting that they use that, which I believe is from a song from, they borrowed from, was it Candix Records? Did a song about frogs. I can't think of it now, but it has that same thing to it. So they borrowed that for Surfing and then put it in Do It Again. Speaking of Do It Again, I've heard people say that A Thing or Two is like an early version of Do It Again. I hear it kinda. I hear the vibe to it, but I don't really get it. Can someone tell me where I need to listen to on A Thing or Two to get that, where that comes in? Is it the guitar part? I don't know. Is it the outro? Let me know where I need to listen to hear that Do It Again. Getting Hungry, it's great to hear this. It has it's the live version, and so it's got this guitar part that's a little bit louder than the studio version, and it's actually better than the studio version in my opinion. Then we have Heroes and Villains, which is a different rehearsal. They don't include the Mike's banter about the nuclear bomb thing. Then we have some California Girls Graduation Day and I Get Around Live. It's kind of funny. They ask, "What do you want to hear? I Get Around or Sloop John B?" And they all yell, "I Get Around." I wonder if that felt like a smack in the face to them. It's like, we recorded Sloop John B a year ago, and you want to hear a song from 3 years ago, which most likely they always want to hear the hits, but Sloop John B was a hit as well, so I don't know. I wasn't live then, so I can't really say, maybe they just want to hear that. This is my absolute favorite version of Graduation Day as well. Bruce, I love Bruce's vocals on it. I've actually talked about it on Smiley Smile message board when they were in Washington. I just love his vocals on it. It's just fantastic. I've always enjoyed that. And then finishes out with an acapella version of Surfer Girl from the Hawaii sessions and Surf's Up, which is the 1967 version, which I already covered. Lastly, as I've spent 25 minutes on this is the Gold Mine as of recently. And I've actually had not any time to read it yet, but we've got a great article on Sunshine tomorrow. I plan to read it. David Beard and Peter Riem does the introduction, and David Beard is interviews on here, and so I know it'll be a fascinating read. And we also have Save for a Rainy Day. Dean's got an article in here as well, so I can't wait to read that. I've been listening to this, reading this Smiley Smile ESQ, and last but not least, I finished Mike's biography. And I know a lot of people out there are like, nah, it's Mike. I don't like Mike. He's so egotistical. You really need to read this. You need to read his perspective. I, had been a, Brian can do no wrong type person for a long time, and I still am. But, I don't, I know Mike is always the villain in this kind of thing, and then you really need to read his perspective. I've said it before on my Facebook group, Beach Boys Related Artists. He has a very interesting perspective on Smile, and I totally get it. You may not enjoy it, but it's like one of the best readings about Smile I've seen in a long time. Since Smile has been around for so long, it's been written and rewritten so many times. This is like a fresh perspective on it. And I really get where he's coming from on it, even though I'm not a Beach Boy or in a band. It's just very relatable, and I understand it. Last night I haven't read the epilogue or the acknowledgments in Mike's book, but I have finished the last chapter, which ends with the reunion tour. And while I totally enjoyed the reunion, I enjoyed That's Why God Made the Radio, the album. And I saw them live in New Jersey as part of that. It was a great show, and I had a great time with it. I was so excited that they got together. But there are things over the years that have brought me down about it, where I've heard, the Brian getting fired thing. That's addressed in the book. You need to read about that. He wasn't fired. I'm not going to tell you all about it because you need to read it for yourself, and I don't want to botch up any details. That's not my story. It's Mike's, and you should read it. Now, I know what you're thinking is like, well, if I buy Mike's book, then I'm giving him money that he doesn't deserve or whatever. It's like, no, that's not what it's about. If you want to read that document, then you should read it, And I don't want to be that person who believes everything he reads, because I take both his and Brian's accounts, both their autobiographies, with a grain of salt. But still, there's got to be some truth in there. And as I read the detailed accounts about the reunion tour, my stomach just kind of hurt from it. I got some type of reaction from it, like, oh man, that's really what happened? I don't want to believe it. I had such a good time with it. I love that album, but man, if this is true, then that kind of sucks. And I kind of just feel bad about it. It makes me feel bad for enjoying that time. Or, I don't know. You'll just have to read it and get some perspective yourself, if that's something you're into. My only criticisms are that, I really wish Mike would have gone into detail about some other things, about recording his solo records. He really didn't go into that much detail. Stuff about MIU, Somewhere in Paradise. He really didn't go into a lot of detail about that stuff. I mean, that's fine. That's the geeky part of me, that I want to hear those details. But this is also his life story, so it's not all about Beach Boys stuff. About his stuff with Maharishi, meditation, Jacqueline, his kids and whatnot. And those parts are interesting. I'm not as interested in those parts, but I read it, and, it's interesting to see some context during those times as to what's going on in his life versus what I see in Beach Boy documentaries and hear on the albums. So it's very interesting to hear all about that. He actually goes into detail as to why Al Jardine was no longer in the Beach Boys in the late 90s after Carl passed away. I won't go into detail about that. You'll just have to read it. So anyway, I highly suggest reading his and Brian's. I got through Brian's really fast. Mike's somewhat took a break. Whenever I get a new ESQ, honestly, I'm not saying this just to promote them, but honestly, when my friend gives them to me, I read those really fast, and then I get back to my reading of the books, just so I'm caught up in the Beach Boy universe. Let's see. Anything else? After this, I will be starting Dean's book that he put out pretty recently. So hopefully by the end of the year, I will have read all three of these books, Mike, Brian, and Dean's. Very interesting perspectives. So I'm glad to have came to you today with some of this stuff. Go ahead and comment, leave whatever. If you're watching, thanks for watching, Geronimo. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Have fun with it. Buy some of this stuff. Look up ESQ. Take care.